That's why I got the Dynasty Day Trader, aka Sushane, aka the tight end shaman on the podcast.
Let's
So
do it.
take it away.
Well, it was a good day for tight ends, and like you said, tight end coach. So I figured I would go over a hot name in college who plays tight end. A lot of you guys know him. Um, he goes to Georgia. His name is Brock Bowers, and I think he might be the most explosive tight end prospect we've ever seen. He's on this tight end Rushmore. He's a third name now listed, and I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of regret doing one thing, Couch, or not doing one thing, I should say. When we went over Michael Mayer, who is easily my favorite prospect on this list, although he did have a really bad look today or this week rather, in practice. But that's neither here nor there, rookie season. I feel like I didn't do enough justice. I didn't talk about him enough. Didn't go over him in detail enough with you guys as to why do I like him so much? Like, why is he so good? Why is he on this feature Mount Rushmore? Like, why do I think he's an elite type of tight end? And the problem is, I can't redo that. I can't go back in time. The 2023 rookie draft, they have come, they have gone, they are over with. The season now plays out. And if you drafted him, we will see how it plays out. If you did not draft him, we will see how your picks play out. That's how it works. But the bottom line is I don't want to make that same mistake twice. And when we're talking about Brock Bowers, who's the third tight end now on this group of four, I don't have much time, much opportunities left. I want to make sure I'm doing due justice, so to speak, on him. So if we go to the next slide here, right? I want to go over quickly what we talked about last. How long ago was that? Maybe like 4 months ago, 5 months ago, during the NFL draft, about how I'm evaluating tight ends and that type of stuff. And we talked about the three different prototypes. We talked about the H tight end, the kind of primary blocking tight end. We talked about the flex tight end, which is more like the Jimmy Graham receivery type guy, doesn't really block. That's as far as rookie prospects go. Dalton Kincaid kind of falls in that flex tight end. And then that wide tight end, which is kind of like in the middle. They both block, they both catch. A little bit of a wider frame, kind of like a Rob Gronkowski type. Michael Mayer would fit in
Jason
that as far as
Witten.
prospect.
Jason Witten's a
Jason
Y,
Witten
right?
for sure.
That's
Yep,
a
Jason Witten's
good
a Y.
example.
Yep, exactly. Chiga Conko, Shannon Sharp is H-backs. Aaron Hernandez as well. And then we also kind of talked about, I remember a couple of people asked about, hey, where does this guy fit in? Where does that guy fit in? And we talked about there is a spectrum, right? It's not really like, hey, you're in this, that, or, H, Y, or F. You're kind of like in between. So that's basically what we talked about last time. So I want to go one step further, okay? Now, this is not everything by any stretch of the imagination, but we are slowly learning about it. And I want to talk about the 5 kind of traits or the 5 kind of tools that I use at least to evaluate tight ends. And the first thing that I want to address right away, and you can scroll down a little bit, is that, people do emphasize athleticism for the position. That's not really something that I'm looking at. And I will explain why when I get there at the end with separation. But I'll start with the top. I'll start with the most important thing that I look for, and that is going to be technique, right? That's the boring stuff. That's the football stuff. That's the stuff that really does not pertain to fantasy football. But it's important for getting opportunities, important for getting snaps, and obviously those things are relevant for the game of fantasy football, right? I'm not going to get into what I'm looking for technique because obviously, fantasy football guys don't really care for that too much. The second most important thing, and this is going to be important for fantasy football, would be the ball skills, right? This is the ability to catch a ball, honestly, in simple words. The 2 most important things that I've been looking for, and we talked about this with Quentin Johnston, ironically, the wide receiver out of TCU, who's drafted by the Chargers. I like a tight end who attacks the football, right? I don't want a guy who's waiting for it, making those basket catches, those body catches, that type of stuff. As a tight end, we're larger than receivers on average, right? So that means we're bigger. We have a larger catch radius. Use your size to your advantage. Attack the football and expand your radius. Don't wait for the ball to get to you. Go after the football, right? So that's kind of ball skills. And obviously, with tight ends, I mean, they're not receivers, right? So they're not as natural as, catching the football. So you kind of want to look at that. How good can they catch a football? Honestly, it's that simple. Physicality and power, those are more for blocking. So I'm not going to talk about them too much, but they are definitely important because there's a difference between a receiver and a tight end, right? A receiver is a guy who specializes in catching the football. A tight end catches the football as well, but it's also involved in the blocking game, in line with the offensive line, and that type of stuff. And then we get to separation, right? And this is why I don't care about athleticism too much, right? So athleticism, how does it show on a football field? It's like the twitch, right? The twitch and the agility and like the double moves and making the guys miss and all that type of stuff. If you can separate like Rob Gronkowski can, that's good enough for me. Because again, you're a tight end. You're more of a size, like win by size type of guy, not win by speed. So as long as you can separate, I'm cool with that. So this is basically what I'm using, the 5 tools, how I evaluate tight ends. Obviously, it's just, we're scratching a little bit further into the surface. There's, of course, a whole lot more, but I just wanted to, kind of open up the curtain just a little bit as to what I'm using to evaluate tight ends. So with that being said, let's get into the tight end that we're evaluating, and that will be Brock Bowers. Let's move on to the next slide, Couch, if you will. And as I mentioned earlier, he is the 3rd tight end on the that Mount Rushmore. So it's a good idea for us to compare him to the other tight ends. Do you have that 3rd slide, by the way, that I sent you? Is it up there, Couch?
Oh, I didn't. Okay. I only had 2.
All good. I can keep on talking if you want to put that up.
I got it. Yeah, I got it. I was
perfect.
up.
Yeah, so I wanted to compare him, right? Because, I mean, think about this, right? I can talk about Brock Bowers individually, which I will in a second, in very, in much detail.
We have a question, by the way, if you want to answer that later right now.
Let's answer this later. So, I mean, I could talk about Brock Bowers individually, which I will in a second. But if you look at take a step back, look at the big picture here. We already have 3 out of 4 of my, future Mount Rushmore guys listed. Let's first compare him to Michael Mayer, who people don't really know just yet, but they will get to know soon. And Kyle Pitts, who, although he's young, still, a young player, inexperienced in the NFL, people kind of have a feel of what he is, right? So let's start with Kyle Pitts. He is basically the prototypical flex tight end. As you can see from that triangle, if you're watching or if you're going to view this later and you can see the visual, he's all the way in that blue corner of the triangle. He has no traits of a Y, no traits of an H. He is the ultimate wide receiver-y tight end type of guy. The blocking technique is not good. Again, does not matter for fantasy football, but kind of does as far as snaps and whatever. And we know about the pterodactyl radius and whatever. Michael Mayer, who people will get familiar with over time, and obviously I have made some lofty projections for him being an all-time great tight end, which I still believe, although he's had a rough training camp. But again, rookie tight ends take a little bit to develop. He is mainly a Y, has a touch of H blocking capabilities, and a touch of flex receiver F tight end capabilities, because you will see Michael Mayer at times line up as like an outside receiver, which is kind of, I don't want to say it's reserved for a flex tight end, but it is like a tendency for that. So that's kind of why I have him not in the corner of a Y, but kind of, in the middle, pulled by both ends there. And then we have Brock Bowers, who he's an H-back. And usually what I say about H-backs is that, they're not good for fantasy football because they block first. They're a good blocking mold, blocking prototype. But there are exceptions to the rule, okay? And with Brock Bowers, just to finish this off, and we can move on to the bottom half here of this one, he does exhibit receiving like flex tight end capabilities, even as an H-back. So that means you are going to see Brock Bowers lined up out wide, even though he's a shorter, stockier type of build. So if we go on to the bottom half here, Couch, and I'm not going to go over Kyle Pitts and Michael Mayer in detail. You guys can read that, if you want to, while I go over this. If you look at Brock Bowers here, just evaluating each of the 5 skills here, the technique, pretty good. It's underdeveloped, needs more time, needs more fine-tuning, but keep in mind he does have 1 more year of college. We love the ball skills. The ball skills is something that I'm going to talk about in more detail later, but he's got an extremely large radius to get those contested catches. Physicality and power, I love it. He's a high effort guy, and that is not only in the run blocking game, but also for fantasy football. He'll get the ball in his hands. He'll turn up the field. Defender will try to tackle him, and he will use that physicality and that power to shed a tackle, get even more yak, get more yards, more fantasy points, et cetera. And, the thing that I really like about him, I mentioned earlier, he's one of the most explosive tight ends of all time, probably, in my opinion. That's how he gains separation. So again, I do not care how he tests in the combine, what his athleticism is. I know how he gains separation. I like the way he gains separation, and I think the way he gains it is going to play well in the NFL. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to hear. All right. As far as getting open for his quarterback. So athleticism, he can test great, he can test good, he can test average, he can test poorly. It doesn't matter. He knows how to get open. He gets open with his explosion. That's kind of why I love him. Let's go a little bit deeper, though. Let's go beyond just the 5 skills with like a, 1 sentence kind of blurb. Let's go a little bit deeper into Brock Bowers. Let's move on to the next one, Couch. And let's start off with the size, right? 6'4", that's good. Kelce is about what, 6'5", 6'3", sorry, not 6'5", 6'5", 6'6", something like that, which is good. 6'4", right in that range. 230, little bit undersized. I think what's going to happen is when you listen to all these guys, like the Daniel Jeremiahs and whoever, in the, in April when they're going over the draft prospects and everything, I think a lot of guys are going to say that he's undersized slightly. But again, I don't think it's a red flag. I don't think it's severely undersized. I don't think it's I think you remember a couple of years back when I was talking about Michael Carter, the running back for the Jets, how the one reason why everything on tape looked great, but man, he was just too small. That's not the case at all with Brock Bowers. He's slightly undersized, but he's good enough to play, right? And what you have to realize about him is Couch. Not only does he block like a tight end, not only does he catch like a Travis Kelce, this guy will get carries. Okay? This guy will get 2 attempts, 7 rushing yards. He can get rushing touchdowns potentially. He can score in multiple ways. It's crazy. In my opinion, that versatility is legitimately game-breaking. And I think he's going to get picked very high in the 2024 NFL draft. I'm thinking at least top 10. I said this about Bijan Robinson. Just remember that. I said Bijan Robinson for the running back position that's undervalued. Still go top 10 because he's that darn good. Man, I think Brock Bowers has potential to go top 5. I don't want to be convicted in that, but top 10, I'll put money on top 10 for sure. Top 5 upside, right? And what is it about him? Obviously, I've said it 3 times now. I'll say it for a 4th time. Most explosive guy at the tight end position that you're going to see coming out of college. And I do not know how long. And my pro comparison to you is not a player. It's a vertical leaping cannonball. Vertical leaping cannonball because he's got that explosion, he's got that toughness, and he's got that leaping ability. That ability to get up there, expand that catch radius. And my goodness, I see you're bringing up TJ Hawkinson.
I was seeing where he went. He went 8 overall. And Kyle Pitts, where did Kyle Pitts go? Did he go
4 overall to Atlanta?
I thought he went.
It was a 3 quarterback.
Yeah.
Yep, it was a 3 quarterbacks, and they passed on Justin Fields, and they went for Kyle Pitts ahead of Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell. Yep, there it is.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's gonna really matter who's in the draft, right? If there's any elite pass rushers, elite quarterbacks, which there are.
There's elite quarterbacks, definitely. But, I think, and obviously there's that one receiver that we've talked about who's definitely going to draw comparisons to Jamar Chase or maybe even better. Those 3 guys I think are locked. 3 or 4 guys are kind of locked into that. But there's that 5th spot right now as of today. Of course, things can change, injuries, etc. Boom players. But as of now, that number 5 overall spot is kind of open. And I feel like Brock Bowers is one of those guys who could be in that selection. Could be that spot there.
Still, top 10 is pretty high.
Top 10 is where I put money on, Couch. I would if I had good odds in any casino to go Brock Bowers top 10, I would put money on that. That's too easy for me. But let's talk about the more important stuff, right? NFL draft is great. What about your rookie draft? Right? Well, if you're in Superflex, that's the most common thing. Probably going to be a mid-round pick. And then if you're in 1 QB draft, probably going to be early. Even though it's not tight end premium, still might be early just because that's how rookie players go. It's about really talent and the drop-off and whatever. And as far as startups go, I'm thinking, some leagues really don't respect rookie tight ends. So I think in those types of things, you can kind of fall into 5, 6, round 6. But, some guys like me, they love their rookie tight ends, especially their elite ones, could go as high as round 2 or 3. Last part here, and then we're going to wrap this one up here. We're not going to go over the blocking tracks. Just as you can see from the visual, though, he does block everywhere, which is good for the usage and the opportunities that you could see on the football field. I want to go over the route tree real quick, and then the rush lane. Let's go over the rush lane real quick first, just because it's short. When I tell you he gets carries, he is not lining up in the backfield. Again, he is not lining up as a running back. This is more of a jet sweep. But when you think of a jet sweep, Couch, you think of the outside guy kind of like running before the ball is snapped. And then once the ball is snapped, he gets the ball from the quarterback, either a handoff, a little pop pass or whatever, and then kind of runs across the field. It's not that dramatic because obviously tight ends are a little slower. And yes, while he is explosive, he's not a receiver that type of fast. He is fast enough for a tight end, good speed, but not compared to a receiver. So they're basically going to line him up pretty close to the offensive line, and they'll motion him across as if he's either blocking or just kind of in motion, and then they'll snap it, and then they'll hand it off to him, and then he'll go across. So it's kind of like a half jet, if you will. It's still a jet motion, but it's a shorter jet motion, if you will. That's how he gets his opportunities as a runner, and this has shown to be lethal for goal line situations. I'm telling you, either he is getting touchdowns or he's getting stopped at the 1 yard line. So he's going to get a lot of looks in the red zone with this type of stuff. I would expect a lot of 6-point rushing touchdowns. Of course, he's going to get his receiving touchdowns. He's going to get more receiving touchdowns. But I would expect a lot of rushing touchdowns out of this tight end, which is crazy for me to see. And real quickly about the route tree, I just want to go over two things briefly. The first thing here is just look how vast this is for a tight end. That's crazy for a tight end. Usually a tight end would have 2 routes, and then a second tight end would have another 3 routes, and then maybe the last one would have another 2 routes. And in total, you'll have like 7 or 8 routes. This one guy can run, I don't even want to count, but that looks like it's a lot. And the 2 that I want to focus on the most would be the crossing route and the wheel route. Most notably the wheel route, right? So the crossing route is probably one of the 2 best routes. That's why I've highlighted it. He really gets open there. He knows how to find his way through a defense, kind of by high IQ type stuff, which is good. And then the wheel route, which is really abnormal for a tight end because wheel routes are usually run by running backs, which is good. But for tight ends, why do running backs run wheel routes? Because they're fast. They can get out in the flat quickly and they can get up the field quickly. Tight ends are slow, right? The fact that they run a wheel with Brock Bowers proves that he's fast enough to get the job done. So that's very important. And again, it's probably, I said his over route is one of his 2 best routes. I think the wheel route, in my opinion, probably the best route he runs, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's really about it. The rest are kind of visuals. I don't really want to talk about, like how many receptions he gets. It's kind of just visuals for you guys to all see. And the PFF grades are really all good. The worst grades there are in the 70s, which means you're a good, you are a good performer in that category. Obviously, there's, it's not perfect. No player is perfect, but the fact that he's got 70s as his floor means he's a darn good player. And again, he's got a whole season of college football to play, so he's got room to develop, room to improve. And then, on the right side there, you kind of see where I think his technique is, his physicality and ball skills and separation, probably among his best traits, power not far behind. And that's pretty much Brock Bowers.